the Adoptive Mom Podcast. Adoption may look different for each family, but we need solidarity from other crazy people who took this leap. And that is what we do here. We encourage, we build up, we share the wins and losses. We lean on each other, and we get through this together. Thanks for joining us. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adoptive Mom Podcast. My name is Alex Fitton, and I am the host, obviously, but I just had to remind you guys that it's me, Alex Fitton. And today I am going to bring you guys an episode with Jolene Smith. So Jolene is an adoptive mom, and in her life before adoption and foster care, she was a CPA. Now, she and her husband, Ryan, parent 7 children, y'all, in their home, plus a 23-year-old foster daughter who is launched and on her own. She also works for The Call. You guys have heard me talk about that before. So she works for The Call in Northwest Arkansas as their database and finance coordinator, and she still does some contract work for a CPA firm on the side. So she's obviously very numbers-minded, very organized. So that's what we're going to talk about. We talked about organization and how we as adoptive moms can keep this train on the tracks while dealing with just the hardest season of our lives. She has this incredible gift to take problematic situations and see the big picture to find solutions and stay sane. And I'm so excited that she's going to share that wisdom with us here in just a minute. Before that, though, I want to remind you guys to rate and review this podcast. It'll just take a second, and it really helps the podcast to rise up in the ranks and be recommended to more adoptive moms who need to hear it. Also, if you are on my email list, you got this episode in your inbox just as soon as it dropped. And if you're not on there, you're missing out. I have links and resources from my guests that I don't share anywhere else. I do giveaways a lot and just some really great information that is in your inbox once a week. But if you want to be a part of that, which you should, go to theadoptivemompodcast.com/email and sign up. And I think that's it. So let's jump into my interview with Jolene. Okay, you guys, I'm sitting here with Jolene Smith, and I'm so excited to interview her because she's really smart and really organized, and she's going to teach us how to keep our lives together. So, hi, Jolene. How's it going?
Great. That was a great no pressure introduction.
Yeah, no pressure at all. It's fine though. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name's Jolene. I've been married for 16 years. My husband and I were foster parents back in 2012 for a couple of years, and we fostered about 20 children. We're also adoptive parents. We've adopted 5 children. In my former life, I was a CPA, and I worked as a public accountant doing audits of various different types of companies. And now I work for The Call as their finance coordinator, and I kind of do contract work for CPA.
Awesome. So yeah, you're like the missing piece. You know, we've interviewed all the other Call ladies, and you're the one that's always avoided me. And then I was like, I hunted you down. So you're here now.
Yes. I am a little shy about talking in general. I like to be behind a computer. That's where I live.
That's awesome. No, it's going to be great. You have a lot of knowledge to share. And I think that's, it's great because you keep The Call organized, which is, just talking about a nonprofit in general, keeping them organized and keeping books straight. Like I want nothing to do with that. That sounds really stressful. Yeah. But that's like right up your alley. So it's great. I think that every adoptive mom or just every mom in general has different strengths. And, honestly, I think that when you take adoption, it's such an emotional thing, and it's so rare to have someone who has a heart for adoption and who also is a practical by nature. And so I think it's really cool that you're both, which is why I'm really excited to have you on the show. But before we get into all of that, tell us just about your adoption story, your family story.
Sure. So like I said, we started out as foster parents, and we initially fostered anywhere from 3 to 4 children. I have one biological daughter when we started fostering, and she was 4 years old at the time. By the time we opened, I was actually pregnant with our second child. And I was just realizing not too long ago that we've actually never just had 2 children. We went from having one child to having 5 children, all in the space of about 5 months. And I never had that experience of like gradually working my way up to, the ladder numerically. So we opened again, like I said, when my oldest daughter was 4 and I was pregnant with our second. And at that time, one of our foster children, his case most of our cases all went to reunification, but his case in particular just did not work out that way. So after he'd been with us for about 9 months, we started looking at adoption for him. It was a really, that adoption in itself was interesting in that we had another little boy that came to us at the exact same time as our son Jay came to us, and we fostered them for the exact same length of time. But on adoption day, we adopted our son Jay, and on the same day, we took our other foster son home to his family. So that was uniquely painful and beautiful at the same time. And also very rewarding. Like, it's hard for me to look back and say which one of those events was the most rewarding, because they're very special in their own way. And it was really amazing to see God walk us down that path of doing both those things at the same time and seeing those both through to completion. Our second adoption came later. After we adopted our son Jay, we stayed open for another year and did some more fostering, and then we closed for about a year and a half. And really, we just didn't have the space. Like, we wanted to be able to do more, and so we started praying about reopening in the future. And so that meant, putting our house on the market and looking for bigger places. And this was all we thought, like, on down the road, maybe another year. But it turned out we put our house on the market and it sold within a week. So then we were looking for a new house, and we found an amazing house that had been on the market for over a year that had more than enough room than we thought we could possibly need for what we planned on fostering. And then the next thing we knew, there was a sibling group of 4 that we had been praying for that was supposed to have been adopted by another family, and that adoption fell through. And so my husband and I both just had this moment of looking at each other and saying, we just need to continue to be faithful. If God sold our house and God got us this other house, then we need to continue forward. And if this happens, then it will be a result of just stepping forward in faith. And the next thing we knew, we had gone from, having just gotten used to having 3 children in the home to incorporating 7 with the sibling group of 4. So it's been quite a journey. Yeah. And rather fun.
There was you're right. There was no, like gradual walking into having that many kids. It was like,
no,
snap, you're 7 kids all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, even with the house thing, it's kind of cool because you guys, I feel like I hear this a lot with adopted families. They're like, we'll just play with this idea. We'll see how it goes. And then God's like, no, here it is. Here's the flood.
Yeah.
That's definitely our story too, but we don't have 7 kids. That's insane.
I don't have littles.
That is true. You have accidental twins, but not accidental triplets. Yes. It's still crazy. So let's talk about that for a second. So you have 2 kids that are the same age, although not biologically related, right?
Right. So actually, we kind of have 3 sets of pseudo twins. Okay. So even though they're like, we have one who's in junior high, she's going to be a freshman next year. We have 2 who are in the 5th grade. We have 2 who are in the 3rd grade, and we have 2 that would be in the same grade this year, but we broke them up. Said no, I'm not doing that. So their birthdays fell just right. Like, one of them has an August birthday, one of them has a July birthday, that we kept one of them back from kindergarten and sent the other one, and so now they're a 1st grade and a kindergartner.
Nice.
So
yeah.
Yes.
No, our twins I call them frenemies, and their birthdays are not in any way on the cusp. So they will like for sure be in the same grade. And I'm just like praying for their teachers now. Cause right now they're in Mother's Day out in the same class, and they're like, they just feed off each other. I'm like, welcome to my life. Why do you think they're here? Like, they just Yeah. I can only imagine having three sets.
It's especially like our oldest set who are in 5th grade are a boy and a girl. And so those, and they're both wickedly smart. So there's like this sense of competition between them.
Okay. So your dynamic. So you have, like we've already discussed, you have, you and your husband been married for a while. You have 7 kids. They're kind of all paired off. Only 2 of them are bio. So that's a lot. That's a lot of different attachments.
Yes, definitely.
So as a CPA or as someone who is maybe more analytical, how has that worked for you? Having to have 7 unique, well, we'll say 5. We'll leave the bios out for a second. So having 5 unique attachments to different kids from hard places, how has that worked for you?
I mean, at times it's been a real struggle. Aside from, like you said, my practical nature, I also can be very distant. Like I'm not one to present my emotions for the world. I'm not one who seeks a lot of connection. And so I have to be very deliberate with my children and find those things that we have in common and that we can spend time doing. And I think the thing that I've learned the most through that process is that it's okay not to do it the way other moms do it. Like there are always things that are unique to you. And as we spend time together and as we grow to know each other, I know when they're telling me that they love me and they know when I'm telling them. And it doesn't have to look like my sister. For a little while, I had to stop following her blog because it was like Baking Tuesdays and Craft Wednesdays. Oh my gosh. Those are not things that I can do. But I can sit down for an hour and a half and do Legos with Jay. And because he can focus on those things and that's important to him. And I'm a great Lego person. I love quiet time with Legos. I can sit and read a book with Ryder, and I can do puzzles with the younger kids. Those are activities that we can spend doing together that still feed my soul for quietness, but establish relationship with them.
Yeah. So you're like speaking to me too. Cause even though I could never be a CPA. I still I don't like kids that much.
Yeah.
And so when they're like, come play, some make believe game, I'm like, oh my gosh, shoot me. Like that is not my thing. I'll read you a book. Like I'll do that. Yeah. Or I'll watch a movie with you, but I'm not into the playing thing. And people always laugh because I think that they assume that adoptive moms were just like, we love kids, so why not have a bunch of them? But that's it's so backwards. I don't understand it. So you're speaking to my heart here because I totally get that.
I totally agree. Yeah. No, I'm not a kid person.
No,
I like when we have conversations. The older they get and the more we can converse, I appreciate that.
Yes. No, and I don't understand the silliness. I have one that's in a really silly phase and he's like, let me tell you a joke. And then it's just a weird noise. And I'm like, go work on it and come back to me because that's not funny.
Let me tell you, I'm the mom that's like, let me tell you all the reasons that was not funny. Your joke is missing some essential parts. Yeah.
Okay. So at church, I coordinate, I work in the nursery or in the childcare or whatever, but I just am the one that will be like, do you need more animal crackers? Great. I will go and fetch them for you. But occasionally they're like, we really need you in a class. And I'm like, are you sure? And they'll put me in there and some kid's telling a poop joke. And I'm like, that is not appropriate. It's not funny. And the other teachers are laughing at the poop joke. And I'm like, you belong in this class. I do not.
I do not. I completely get that. Absolutely.
I'm not the only one.
Yes. Actually, so if I have a craft, it's spreadsheets, right? I enjoy spreadsheets. I like seeing things line up in the columns. And that is, I don't want to go glue stuff onto wooden frames and make things, but I will spend a lot of time on a spreadsheet. But my oldest daughter, and this goes towards connection. My oldest daughter is very artistic and she loves to draw and she loves to create and she's wonderful at it. And so her 13th birthday was coming up and I knew that she was going to want to do something crafty with her friends. She had mentioned it several times and I I started having this anxiety that like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to come up with a craft and I'm going to have to supervise it and I'm going to have to be there and engage in doing this. And Brandy Shiyama, who you know, she was like, why? Why do you have to do that? Why can't you just get somebody who likes that to do that? And I was like, oh my gosh, Brandy.
Yes.
You're a genius. So I called a mom friend of mine that I know enjoys crafts. And I said, here is some money. You go to Hobby Lobby. You come up with the craft. You bring it over. I'll stay there and take pictures. I'll be engaged and I'll make the snacks. But I didn't have to why force yourself into a thing that you can't, that you're not good at, that it's only going to lead to me being irritated and angry.
Yes.
Number one, because I just get irritated when I can't do those things, and steal from the enjoyment of her activity when I can let somebody who loves it, who wants to help my family do this, and have an enjoyable party. So I think like always knowing your limits and being willing to do things for your children, but to also find ways to keep the joy alive in those moments without robbing it with your own anxiety.
Yeah, no, that's some powerful advice. Cause I think that as moms, we do try to do it all and we try to be something we're not. But as we've already discussed in this, earlier in this episode, there are a lot of us who don't have the strong suits that come along with, with being an adoptive mom, because we're inviting chaos into our house. And many of us don't have the tools to deal with that chaos. So then we just feel like we're failing. And that's a huge reason that's the main reason I wanted to have you on this episode, because you are pretty organized. I know you probably don't think you're like the best at it in the world, but you are like, you have systems that you put in place. And I think that that's what a lot of us need are systems that we can maintain something, but it's creating the system that feels really impossible to us. So what are some of the things that keep you sane?
I think I should start with a disclaimer, that this is my personality. So a lot of these things will bring me peace that don't necessarily bring other people peace. So never take on something that creates more anxiety for you. So I think that having things organized and having like a system brings structure and peace. And I think a lot of those things will, but maybe you're not a color-coded planner type person, and that's okay.
I am. So, and
also I'm used to, as a CPA, I'm used to counting my time in 6-minute increments and making every minute count, because I'm going to bill that later. I've had to pull myself out of that when it comes to planning for my family, because when you have 7 kids, obviously there's chaos and you cannot plan for everything. So some of the things that I do, Monday mornings are my time with my planner. And I choose Monday mornings because usually there's nothing happening at school on a Monday. The only thing that we have to do on Monday morning is get the kids fed and out the door. And there's nothing happening that day. I don't plan appointments for Mondays. I keep Monday open and simple so I can recuperate from the weekend, from having everybody home, and just and focus that time on getting ready for the upcoming week. And weeks are my chunks. I know a lot of great moms who can make their meal plans for a month in advance, and they buy all the food and do that for the entire month. I do a week at a time. So I sit down with my planner on Monday mornings. I go back through the teacher emails. I have a different color for each child, and I write all in my planner what's going on that week. And for me, it's not so much about controlling that week, because at the end of the day, or at the end of that planning session, I'm going to close that planner and I put my hands on it, and I just pray that God will let me release that, like that if all those things don't happen, that I'm not going to be disappointed or angry, just knowing that not everything that I planned may come to fruition. But the peace comes from knowing, like, I already know that Thursday is going to hurt in advance, right? Like, I have 4 appointments on Thursday. They start at 7:30 in the morning. The pickup schedule is different on Thursday. And so I can grieve Thursday on Monday and be done with it, and not go into Thursday feeling like Thursday is pushing me along. I already knew it was happening on Thursday, and I don't have to have anxiety about how rough Thursday is going to be anymore. Some some other things that I like to do is like on an annual basis, I do kind of an assessment, because I really think that your priorities show up in how you spend your time. And sometimes your time can really get away from you, especially when we have as many kids as we do. They all want to do sports and they all want to be involved in extracurricular activities. And so we have to be very deliberate about saying, you know what, what's important about extracurricular activities for this family with you guys at the age that you're at, because you're not going to go to college on a baseball scholarship. That's probably not going to happen. Is that your family gets to be at the games and that they're there cheering for you, and that we as a family are encouraging you and participating in a sport together. So we don't let more than 3 kids do a sport during any given season. Okay. And when they do that, they all have to commit to the same sport. And that helps us with scheduling and everything else, so that we're not, if you sign them up ahead of time and you have pseudo twins, they will put them on the same team for you. And that helps a lot too, so that they're 2 of those kids, their practices are at the same time, their games are at the same time. Yeah. And so all those things come together.
So how do you pick which 3, or does it all just kind of fall into place?
It alternates. And also, like, honestly, like, for our oldest, Winnie, she doesn't participate in those kind of, like, we don't sign her up for soccer and things like that anymore, because she's in junior high now, so she can participate in those things at school. Yeah. And so, you know, we're not going to sign her up for soccer leave. She can do track after school on Thursdays and Fridays. And one of our children, like, we also don't force them into sports. So if one of our children decided she doesn't want to play sports anymore, she likes reading and doing math club, and that's fine. I'm not going to force you to go out and
be in a math club.
What?
I said, why wouldn't your daughter be into math club?
I know. Of course she is. Yes, she is. She's definitely a little mini me. One of them is. The other one is a wild thing that I have no idea where she came from. But oh goodness, where was I even going with that, Alex?
I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you. We were just talking about the sports, how you choose your 3, or if it all just falls in place.
Yeah, that just kind of alternates. Yeah, and who wants to do what. So we know, like, you got to play spring baseball, so you're not going to play soccer in the fall. That's going to be the 2 little ones or whatnot.
That sounds.
I usually pick the littlest for the soccer because I love the little 3-on-3 soccer,
the herd
craziness
mentality where they all just run around in a pack. It's so cute. That's something that causes me major anxiety, because I don't do well with being a chauffeur, and I have one kid who has a lot of needs, and so he has like 7 appointments a week, and I'm already like, ugh, it's too much driving. No. And I have my friends that are like, we have practice, and I am not looking forward to that season. So
no, and yeah, you can't do that. Oh, that's where I was going. So the sports was kind of a sidebar, but we do an annual assessment and look at our time, because we have priorities for our family and by we, I mean my husband and I, that we've come up with and that we've prayed over and that are important to us. And so on an annual basis, I will show you later, Alex, but the spreadsheet that I have made, I do a color-coded spreadsheet analysis of what I actually spend my time on. So I go through and look at like how much time we're spending at sports and how much time we're spending at meals and how much time we're spending commuting. Commuting is in orange because that's a big deal, how much time you're spending in your car. And if I look at that and realize, our priority was making sure that we had devotional time with our children at least 3 nights a week, and now it's only happening once a week at max, then something has to give. And because that's the priority and not the sports. Because I'm a little biased on this. My dad coached basketball for years and years at the high school level. And I just know that you can take your kids to all the soccer games you want to take them to, and you can sign them up for the leagues that you want to sign them up for, but they are most likely not going to get a scholarship to go to college based on that. Right. They're going to there's a lot of things that, especially that our foster kids can get scholarships for without going the sports route. And so, yeah, we've just prioritized other things. And of course, like if those things bring you joy and they're good family time for your family and they accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish, then certainly, keep those things. But that's where we look at our time and say, are the things that we're doing accomplishing the goals that we have set out for our family? And if they're not, then what can we clear out? And so one season we didn't do any sports because we had more therapy during that season. There were a lot of children in therapy during that season, and the sports weren't going to help with that.
Right. I feel like when we look at our time, we're more afraid of what our kids will miss out on than the experience that they'll actually get. And that's something that, I don't know, that's advice that I've gotten a while, is that, your child will remember peace in your family more than they will remember that one soccer season or that, one activity that they missed.
Absolutely.
And I think that we're handing them that. We're handing them peace. We're handing them stability when we protect our time. And so I'm so glad that you started with time management. And if it's okay with you, I would love to post that spreadsheet on the show notes just so people can get an example.
Sure.
And maybe you could even make it blank so people can use that.
It's rather fine-tuned.
Of course.
And it's mostly for a visual. Like for me, everything's visual. So I just want to see those blocks in color and say, ooh, there's where I'm spending time on myself. There's where I'm spending time with my children, and also tweaking things. Like if my goal is to spend more time with my children and I can't take out, cooking and laundry, then somehow I need to be incorporating time with my children into cooking and laundry.
Yeah.
Usually not cooking because that just adds a lot of stress. I like to be in the kitchen by myself, but laundry I can definitely like.
Me too. The kitchen is my sanctuary.
Yes.
That's when I'm like, if Brian isn't home in time to like keep them out of the kitchen while I cook, then I'm like, screw it. We're just having pizza.
Yes. It's not worth it.
Exactly. So, okay, moving away from time management, what are some other just actual systems as far as like color coding and just all these things that would be easy for someone who's not as analytical to put into place?
I think that meal planning makes a huge, huge difference. It's one thing that you can do differently if you're a fly by the seat of your pants kind of person that doesn't take a ton of time and actually reduces stress.
Hey again, guys. I hope you are enjoying my interview with Jolene Smith. She's so smart, and I'm really, really excited about this interview. Before we get back to it, I want to tell you guys about my Facebook group. If you didn't already know, I have the Adoptive Mom community over on Facebook, and it's just a great resource for us to join together, share our struggles, share our wins, and talk about the episode and topics related to it. I have some other contributors too, and almost all of my guests are in the group as well. So it's just easy access to ask them follow-up questions or anything like that. So if you are not a part of it and you want to be, you're going to want to go to the show notes at theadoptivemompodcast.com and click on the link there, or you can just go to Facebook and search for the Adoptive Mom Community. I really want you to be a part of it, and I hope that you will. So thank you so much for listening, and we're going to get back to Jolene.
It's just one of those things that, like, when you get home at the end of the day, all your kids are coming home from school. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to be staring at my refrigerator trying to figure out what it is I'm going to feed my kids. And also, when you have kids like I do, who come from traumatic experiences, one of the things that always seems to accompany that is food insecurity. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter how many years they've been in the household, they still worry sometimes if it's 3:10 and I haven't said it's snack time, that I've forgotten about snack time, Mm-hmm. So they know that there's a calendar on the wall that says what they're going to eat that week, and they know what time we eat dinner. And I don't have 5 different kids coming to me and saying, Mom, when are you going to feed us? What are you going to feed us today? What are you going to feed us? And literally I have one child who would ask me, what are we having for dinner today? What are we having for dinner tomorrow? Have you thought about what we're having for dinner on Wednesday? Like, it is a thing.
That's real life.
And so it doesn't just decrease my anxiety. It actually helps my children's anxiety too, to have this plan for the week. So that means that on Monday mornings when I do my planning, I look at my week, I know which days are going to be crock pot days because I'm not going to get home until, 5:30 or 6. And I know which days I can actually spend behind the stove. And Friday is always paper plates and pizza. That's my day off.
Mm-hmm. I feel you.
And they know that and look forward to it. But I think of all the things, that is like the one thing that really helps streamline the afternoons with the kids is knowing what we're going to eat that day and already having a plan for that.
Well, and if I could interject with my own, commentary on that, because meal planning, well, this is what I've learned. So I'm a 1 on the Enneagram, and that says that I'm a perfectionist. I never feel like a perfectionist. Until recently, when I heard that perfectionists would rather take a 0 than a C-. And that is 100% true. That's why I don't feel like a perfectionist, because if it's not like, if I don't fill out 2 days of my planner, then I would rather just not fill out the whole week, because I
have that too.
I like to look at it and I'm like, well, I failed on those 2 days. So I would rather just fail the whole week than have those failures staring at me. So if I don't meal plan, or if I have if Monday's dinner doesn't work out, then I feel like the whole week is lost. So what I've started doing is I'll just count out 5 meals, because you're right, we have a pizza night, and then we'll have like a leftovers night, and then we might eat out or something like that. So I'll just count out 5 meals for the whole week, and I just bullet point them. I don't even assign them to days. And I'll usually try to pick like 2 crock pot meals, but that way, just for me, I don't feel like so much of a failure if I screw up a day and whatever, because then I'm like, oh, I just have an extra meal I can carry over, instead of being like, oh, but Friday's meal didn't work out, and that means everything is trash. Like, 'cause that's what my brain does.
Yes. No, and that's something that takes time and habit and practice to learn, is letting go of those things. And that, because when you have 3 kids, it's easier to hold yourself accountable to each and every line item on your list. And kind of along with the meal thing, I may have a lot of things on my to-do list for any given day, but I try before I leave in the morning to say, what's the one thing that I want to accomplish today? Like, if I don't get anything else done today, what's the one thing that will make me happy at the end of the day if I've done that? And then I have a second list of 3. So like, if I get really lucky and hit the trifecta, if I could get 3 things done, what are those 3 things going to be? And then, yes, giving yourself grace instead of considering it a failure is hard. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to like remake a to-do list with all the things that you did do so that you can cross those off instead of the original list that you had.
I totally do that
for that day.
Well, and I like what you said about mourning the loss of a day before it happens and accepting it, because that's like, your Thursday is my Tuesday. And, and that's the day that I know is going to be chaos. I'm out of the house for a lot of the day I'm just chauffeuring kids around, and I already feel anxiety about that day every week, because I know that I'm going to have nothing left at the end of the day. So accepting the fact that Tuesday, I might not get a lot done. I think that that's important. And I love that you said you close it and you pray over it, because I don't do that. Like, that's something, this is why you're here, like telling us these little things that you can do that will make your life easier. That's not changing your personality, because anyone can do that. Okay. So beyond meal planning, how do you keep like their stuff from taking over your entire household and mind?
That is a good question. So I was actually thinking about this as I was getting ready. Like, so I'm in my bedroom right now. This is my space. And I don't know if you guys talk about Enneagram numbers on your podcast very much, but my Enneagram type is known for needing their own little space. And so this is my space. Sometimes my kids' stuff creeps in here and I just throw it outside the door and close the door. So like at the end of the day, this is my space and nobody else's junk comes in here.
Yeah.
Then as far as letting it take over the rest of the house, I just kind of like, this is funny. I have categories for rooms, right? So there's like, their kids' bedrooms. I don't stress over. I know they're going to be messy and I make them clean them once a week and they may clean them haphazardly. When they're away at school, I go through there with a trash bag occasionally and just get rid of things that I don't want to see anymore.
Nice.
And they never seem to notice that they're gone. But so kids' rooms would be a priority 3. That's their space. And if they want to live like pigs, then they can do that for 5 or 6 days out of the week. I have like a tier 2 zone that would be the basement area where they can have more stuff out, but not a lot. That still needs to be cleaned up at the end of the day when they get done. And by cleaned up, like things just kind of need to be moved to the corners, and there needs to be floor space so that we can sit down and watch our show. Right now we're watching Scarecrow and Mrs. King. That's our one show that we watch at night together. And I want to be able to see the floor when I come down there.
Yes.
And then I have my zone 1 areas, which are our kitchen and dining room and our formal living area. And those things, like throughout the day, if I walk through and I see something that does not belong in there, I'm telling kids, come get it now, come get it now, come get it now. Because that's zone 1. I try not to be too mean about it, but like they know.
Yeah.
Not to leave their shoes in there or not to leave their coats in there. So
this is fascinating to me though. Like my kids are a little young to understand it, but they're the perfect age to start implementing it.
Yes.
But because we're at the age where, they each have like one chore and they do it really horribly, but they're learning.
Right.
And that's me as a Enneagram 1. I'm like, just let it go. Who cares if he doesn't sweep up everything? Just let it go. And I'm having to like chant that to myself. But their stuff is just everywhere. And it's not just toys. It's like backpacks and lunchboxes and just like shoes and everything. And I think that's where I struggle, is keeping it to where, we took a mud closet and turned it into, we took a coat closet and turned it into a mudroom. So now there are hooks that their stuff goes on, and that relieves a lot of stress. But I mean,
yes.
When they come home, do you have systems in place for like, no, you don't just drop your backpack there. You do this.
Yes. So I have, I just have 2 coat racks in the garage and a shoe rack. And so the majority, their school shoes go there, and like their Sunday shoes and everything are up in their rooms. And you would think that like after having done this for years that they would just automatically come home and put their things on those spots. But I still have to stand by the door when they're getting off the bus and say, shoes on the shoe rack, backpacks on the coat rack, shoes on the shoe rack, coats on the coat rack. But that's our theme for right after school. You don't get your snack out of the closet until your shoes are in the shoe rack and your coat's on the coat rack and your backpack's on the coat rack too. And no, I better not see you just open the garage door and toss something out there. Like you need to go place your shoes. It also helps when you circle back around to the next morning, because before we implemented that system, everyone was like, I can't find my shoe. Where's my shoe? Now we all know where the shoes are, and we know where the coats are. And we know where the backpacks are. So that's, yes, that keeps clutter from, because otherwise they would just kick their shoes off, like starting from the door. It would be like, drop this, drop that, all the way from the door to the kitchen. Yeah. Where they would be sitting down with their snack. Like that. Yeah. All of our kids have chores. And we do have an allowance system. And I did not receive an allowance as a kid. My parents were always of the mindset that, we're part of this family. And so these are things that you do to be a part of the family. And I still agree with that. So we have some chores that are paid and some chores that are unpaid. But the nice thing about having paid chores is that it gives me something to take away. Because especially with older children, like you need things to be able to do to discipline them, and correct them. And so money is definitely one of those things. And there's lots of things that my kids can do. We had our youngest child spent a couple days with some friends during the school week, and their kids are older, and they mentioned when they brought him back, like, I did not realize all the things that my children were capable of doing until your kindergartner came over and just started doing them. Like literally, my friend was turning on the hot water for her second grader when he would take a shower. She's like, because I just assumed that he couldn't figure out how to work the shower, but your son's up there like hopping in all by himself and getting himself washed up and downstairs before everybody else. So I think learning that your kids are capable of things and then assigning them duties based on those capabilities really helps the whole household. And they learn that, like having one of the first chores that they do is wiping down the table and cleaning up under the floor. And we found that when we started that with the older kids, and now they've moved on to another job, that that they eat more neatly because they remember how bothered they were having to clean up everybody else's mess. Mm-hmm. So once you have to start cleaning up all those crumbs and picking up under the table, you realize, maybe I shouldn't eat like a slob. I should eat over my plate and try to keep my crumbs to a minimum so I don't have to clean up so much later.
Yeah.
So that's kind of our third grade level that they do every night after dinner, is wiping down the table, cleaning up under the table. And then the older kids are loading the dishwasher, and the oldest is our laundry person. And so all their responsibilities kind of are graded with their abilities. And that, I literally could not run the house if the children weren't also helping.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, and I think, you've indicated something that I wanted to ask you about, because I think that just our brains, whenever there's chaos or whenever something is frustrated or when there's no system in place, we get into this mindset that that's just how it is, or that it's not, it's weird because we're like adults with college degrees, but still in our minds, it's like, it doesn't occur to you that you can change something or fix it.
Right.
And so you were saying, before nobody could find their shoes, so you implemented a shoe system. So what's some of your advice when it comes to that stuff, to putting systems in place or to just fixing something? Recently I was jokingly complaining about how loud my children were, because they're just really loud. Apparently we produce really loud children. And somebody was like, here's what you have to do to fix it. And she wasn't being mean. I was like, it was the first time I was like, oh, I can just fix it. Or like tell them to not be so loud. And I felt so stupid because I'm like, of course you can do that. Like, children are pretty malleable. We know this, but it just never occurred to me to be like, you're being loud, so stop. So once I started telling them inside voice, and that's like my recording right now, they're getting better at it. Who knew? So what's your advice there? Because I think that a lot of us just need to be reminded that if something's broken, you can fix it.
Yes. It's funny because for me, I kind of had to take an opposite role because there's so many things that I would like to fix, right? So I have to prioritize the things that I'm going to fix. Yeah. But yeah, like and realizing too that your kids need that and want that. Like, they want to be able to find their shoes in the morning. That stresses them out. That doesn't set their day off well. So finding those things that can actually improve the outcome of the day, and not worrying about the things that aren't going to add value. So eating together is a priority for us. So obviously that creates a mess, and we need a system for that. So like, what is each child capable of doing that will help make dinner time go more simply? And we do a buffet style at our house because we have so many people, and some people have really short arms, and we couldn't pass plates around, and we couldn't, pass dishes around. So we set it up as a buffet. They go through, the bigger kids help the littler kids. That's one thing. Another thing that I've done is ask for help. There are nice teenagers at my church who are, who want to be helpful and can drive, and I let them help me with things. I let a teenager come over in the afternoon once a week and just kind of play with the little people so that I know that they're getting some attention while I can work on homework problems with the older children.
Yeah.
And so that was a system that I didn't come up with on my own. Like, I was kind of like I was like, I can't ever sit with the big kids and help them with anything related to school because I constantly have these little people running around needing my immediate attention. And I can't, they just can't be left to themselves. I'm sure you know how that works. And it wasn't until somebody suggested to me that, well, why don't you just have somebody come to your house in the afternoon like that? But who would do that? Teenagers would do that. Teenagers that go to your church will do that. They will hang out with your kids and they will be sweet. And you can actually spend some time with, who you need to spend time with. So, being open to ideas that are, maybe would have previously been outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I think is also key. What's another system that we have? There's so many systems in place that I have trouble identifying them sometimes as a system, right?
But just on what
another system is you don't bring anything into the van.
But just on what you were saying about being okay with doing things that might have made you uncomfortable. Someone recently told me that as adoptive families, it's a lot of times we try to fit our lives or our family structures into a normal box because we see what our typical family friends are doing and we think that we should be able to get on their level somehow. And that's part of that mourning is that we have to be like, that will never be our life. We just need to accept that. And instead, these are the things that we need to put in place so that we can stay sane and not go crazy.
Right.
So just,
absolutely.
I love what you said there. It's totally like learning to be okay with things that your friend with 2 biological kids and that's it might not have to do, Okay. So I think you have given us some really awesome things to think about and implement. And like I said, any other jewels of wisdom that Jolene has, I'm going to be putting in the show notes. But if it's okay with you, can we move into some of these closing questions?
Sure.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
So I'm going to filter a lot of these through our topic, which is just organization in general. So what is one of the systems that you wish that someone had told you about or that you had known to implement at the beginning of this adoption journey?
This one's kind of funny, and it may be my personality type too, but when I was thinking about it beforehand, I was like, I don't take unsolicited advice well. Like all the things that I wanted to know about this, I asked people I respected ahead of time, and I got the answers that I wanted. So it's hard for me to think of something that I wish somebody had just told me. But I think the shoe system would have been nice going in. Like, I know it sounds like a little thing, but it is when there's 7 of them, that's 14 shoes, and that's a big deal.
And you have girls too, so it's not just.
I have girls, and they have a lot more shoes.
Yeah.
The boys are easy; they have a pair of tennis shoes and they have a pair of dress shoes. The girls, goodness.
Yeah, no, it's painful sometimes. Okay, so what is something you wish you had done differently?
I still wish, it's something that I'm constantly working on. I just wish I could be more open than I am. And I think that sometimes I don't give myself credit for how far I've come in that category, but I still recognize that I'm not as open as other moms I know or other, parents I know, or even my husband. Especially my husband. But I also want to encourage people to have grace there, because I'm sure that there are other moms that feel that way, that they're just like, they're not as in tune to just feelings in general. But I feel like God has blessed our family, that we have kind of like these 2 sides of the coin. My husband is very in tune to those things and can be very vulnerable in that way, in a way that I can't. And I think that we balance each other in that way. And I try to not give it's definitely something that deserves to be worked on and needs to be worked on for the sake of my children. But not something that I try to put myself down about all the time either.
Right. Not shame inducing, but yeah. No, that's good. I like that. Okay. So what is a way that your tribe has supported you that you've just really loved?
My favorite thing, came from our second adoption, and our church actually threw a shower for us. And, but the shower was all cleaning supplies. We got so many boxes of Gain laundry detergent that I did not have to buy laundry detergent for the entire first year. Wow. And that's saying a lot, because you can imagine 7 kids and 2 adults and doing laundry all year long. I didn't buy a single box of laundry detergent for the first year. And that is a seemingly little thing to even think about laundry detergent, but it was a huge deal, a very huge deal. Mm-hmm. And every time I opened a new box of laundry detergent that I didn't have to purchase, I was reminded that my church supported us and loved us and was looking out for our kids.
Yeah. Those practical things, those are priceless. You know, we think that it's not fun to give someone laundry detergent or whatever, but it blesses them so much.
Definitely.
Yeah, we got a bunch of formula, and that was one of those things that I didn't have any experience with formula. And so in my mind, I was like, I'll never have to buy formula. And it lasted, like 2 or 3 months. But still, I didn't realize how expensive formula was. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people really blessed us. And that meant so much. So yeah, give your friends practical stuff. So on the flip side, what's a way that you felt misunderstood or hurt by people? And, it's always accidental. I don't think it's ever on purpose, but our people want to know what is not helpful.
Yeah. I was thinking about this, and I think, because I always see it on my side too, like what have I not communicated? And I think one of the biggest things when we went from having a family with 3 kids to a family with 7 kids was that the things that we just couldn't participate anymore probably appeared to others that we had been close with that we were trying to pull away. And it wasn't a pulling away. It was just like, I can't do those things anymore. Like, these are 4 kids that with one of the things that's different about the adoption of the sibling group is that I fostered my first son for a year, and I knew him when I adopted him. When these 4 children came to my house, it was almost like a blended family effect because they were a family unit and we were a family unit, and we're trying to blend those 2 together, and we didn't know each other. I hadn't walked their story. I wasn't there for all the things that hurt them. And so there was a lot of anger and distrust and acting out in various ways that we couldn't always anticipate or know what the trigger was going to be. And so it didn't make sense anymore to take 7 kids that I didn't know what they were going to do in any given situation and go to a friend's house, even if they've been friends of ours for years, and have small group there and be able to concentrate on reading God's word downstairs, wondering if, what was going on with my children upstairs. It was impossible. And so, in the learning curve was we've learned that we need to bring people here, but then it just felt very isolating. Like I can't go do those things anymore. And so slowly you stop being invited to do those things. And it's not that you don't want that community. It's just that you need it in a different way. And so I would encourage anyone to be thinking of how you can provide community for a family like that in a way that it's comfortable for them and their children. If that makes sense. Yeah,
that's a really good one because that's so true. And sometimes that's going to look a lot different. I mean, just like what you said, but I know that, as an extrovert, whenever I'm bogged down or my capacity is eaten up, I start looking a lot more like an introvert. And it's hard because my people are used to me wanting to talk, wanting to hang out. And sometimes that's not what I want. Sometimes I want them to just watch a movie with me or so, I don't know, whatever. But yeah,
right.
Being open to your friends changing. That's a really good one. Okay. So what is your favorite adoption resource?
Honestly, it's my girlfriends. Like I have a handful of moms that I'm very close with that have all walked the same journey that I have. And the biggest encouragement is having that network of friends to be able to, on days when you think this can't possibly have happened to anybody else, to have some people that can make you laugh and say, oh no, let me tell you about the time it happened to me and it manifested itself in this way. That's really my best resource.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised how often I get that answer. I think that it's an easy go-to for us to think of like a book or something like that. But so many people say it's their community or their people or friends or a Facebook group full of people or just whatever. So I love that. I love that it points to community, because that's, in the end, I mean, that's how the church was designed. And I think that's
yeah.
So
you can't do this in a bubble.
No. Okay. So Miss Jolene Smith, if you could sum it all up when it comes to organization, what's your biggest piece of advice or encouragement to adoptive or foster families?
You cannot control it all. And be ready yourself to ask for help. The best thing that I ever did going into foster care was to sit down with 3 families and tell them what we were doing ahead of time and pray with them for the kids that were coming to our home and saying, I'm going to be asking you for help. We need you in this journey. And if you're willing to do that, then take some time to think about it and come back to us and say yes. But like, if you say yes, know that you're going to be helping us with this. And that, for somebody who likes to be in control, is a scary leap of faith. To, 1, recognize something that you cannot do, 2, to ask somebody else to help you do it. And then trust that person is going to do it in a way that'll be acceptable, just letting go. Because, I was meditating on some verses this morning before you called. And one of them is Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord, whatever you do, and he'll establish your plans. You can make the plan, but at the end of the day, God's in control of it. And as long as your goal in that plan is to walk towards him, that's the most important thing.
Girl, I had a feeling this episode was going to be amazing, and it was. So thank you for providing that. But I think that a lot of times, we can talk about our feelings, and that's great. It's important. But sometimes sometimes we need someone to be like, this is what you do, and that's amazing. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all of your wisdom. And we just appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Adoptive Mom Podcast. I hope you found encouragement here. I need you to know that you are enough and you're doing a great job. We are all in this together, and I am over here cheering you on. Don't forget to check out show notes for this episode and other resources at theadoptivemompodcast.com. Thanks for joining us.